Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to talk a little bit about the prejudice we see in our everyday lives and why or why not it comes to silence or speaking out. Perhaps a friend uses an offensive word, a coworker implies that people from some groups are just naturally better than others, or a family member expresses anger or fear towards another person because of the color of their skin or the way that they talk. For most of us, such acts of prejudice make us feel bad because they violate our core values. We strive to treat people in fair, equal, and unbiased ways, and we get angry, upset, and frustrated when others don't follow this code of conduct. But what do you do when you actually see the prejudice in your daily life? Inside, you might be reading into your grandmother or aunt or the obnoxious neighbor, the riot act, and rolling your eyes, but outside you act as if nothing is wrong. You don't want to make waves at the holiday dinner or cause your neighbor to call the city because you have a flag they don't like in your yard. Or with your supervisor. Maybe he says something like, "I'm not racist, but," and there's always something bad after the buts. You just write it off thinking, there he goes again, he doesn't have a clue. You complain later to your spouse or your best friend, but don't say anything in the moment because you worry that it will come back to bite you in the ass during promotion time. Perhaps you're just tired of always being the one who has to remind people that words can and do hurt, making people feel as if they don't belong, disrespected, or invisible. So instead of speaking up, you just stay silent. If you can relate to any of these scenarios, you are totally not alone. Research shows that most people believe they will stand up to prejudice, questioning the perpetrator, noting the problematic nature of the act, or exclaiming surprise. However, less than half confront when faced with an actual instance of prejudice. That was some early research statistics for the Swim and Hires in 1999. In this area suggested that there is a good reason for the discrepancy between what people say they'll do and what they actually do. It turns out that there are some costs to confronting. Most of them are interpersonal. Confronters are not always viewed particularly positively. There are sometimes likened to complainers or troublemakers, and often regarded as mean, impolite, or aggressive. Yet recent research reveals 5 surprising outcomes of confronting, suggesting that you are still better off doing something rather than nothing when it comes to prejudice. 1. It stops future instances of prejudice. Confronting is a very effective way to get people to stop behaving in discriminatory ways. For example, in a set of studies, Alex Kazap and his colleagues in 2006 asked participants to complete a test designed to elicit stereotypic responding about African Americans. When participants relied on stereotypes, they were subsequently confronted by a research assistant from the study. Compared to people who were not confronted, those who were confronted were much less likely to make stereotypic associations in the future. These effects are not just limited to the perpetrators. Research also showed that the witnesses reduced their prejudice following confrontations as well. 2. It makes you feel better. Confronting also increases the psychological well-being of those who are brave enough to face prejudice. Confronters tend to feel less angry and less regretful, rather than ruminating on what they should have done after the fact. Confronters experience more closure. People who challenge prejudice also feel more competent, have better self-esteem, and are more empowered relative to people who do not. 3. It makes you a better person. Not only does it make you feel better, but confronting actually makes you a better person over time. People who fail to confront, however, tend to be more prejudiced themselves over the long term. When people act in ways that are discrepant from their beliefs, for example, saying nothing in response to sexism, even though practicing gender fairness is important to them, they feel cognitive dissonance, the uncomfortable feeling we get when we act hypocritically. When people experience cognitive dissonance, they often change their beliefs rather than their behavior. As a result, when people fail to confront prejudice, they convince themselves that their values match their actions, and thereby their commitment to confronting prejudice in the future is reduced. 4. It is easier than you think. Although images of conflict, opposition, and defiance may come to mind when you think about confronting prejudice, it turns out that people can confront in friendly ways that allow others to save face. For example, you might make a joke conveying the problematic nature of the action, or give the person an out, indicating that you're sure they didn't mean it in a prejudiced way, but some people might perceive that action as problematic. Although these types of friendly confrontations may seem like a cop-out, it turns out that they are just as effective as more hostile confrontations. And number 5, practice makes perfect. Like any other skill, confronting can be learned and practiced. For example, elementary girls and boys who practiced confronting prejudice were more likely to effectively confront immediately following the training as well as 6 months later. Confronting isn't easy, neither is being confronted. However, if we want to stop prejudice in our daily lives, feel better, and become better people, we have to do something. So what do you do when you see prejudice in your daily life? Have you found effective ways to confront prejudice and experience positive consequences from confronting? If you have, please leave it in the comments. I'd like to hear your story. Have a good night, everybody.